Hello friends, my name's Emile and welcome to Reach the Peak, the show where you guys request cars and then I take them up our tricky hill climb course to see how good or bad they fare. This is episode 4 and we have quite the packed show today, featuring 5 cars as always. We start today with, well, a contender for the top spot on our leaderboard. This is an MG Metro 6R4. 410 horsepower, 270 foot-pound of torque, 2,271 pounds of weight. This is an S2 class car, the first S2 class car we've ever had around, 903 in PI when equipped with the snow tyres. The MG Metro is pretty much perfectly set up for this course. It is very lightweight, it has 4-wheel drive, it has a decent amount of power, and it's mid-engined, which means it does get very quick launches. This car is stupidly quick. You just click the go pedal and it will go. It's insanely quick. The downside to that is that this car is pretty darn terrifying to drive. The Metro, you know, it has a short wheelbase, it's mid-engined. It does like to twitch, as in randomly twitch occasionally, which can be a bit of an issue when you're doing the speed you're doing up here. Like I said, very quick car, but very, very terrifying indeed. Also does suffer from a little bit of understeer. Those rear tyres are pretty big, the front tyres not so much. So you do get a little bit of understeer from this vehicle. There have been worse vehicles that have gone up here understeer wise, but it is something you've got to pay a factor for. Other than that though, this car's great, it's fantastic, it's very well set up. Up here, you know, it's a decent handling vehicle, it has the speed, it has the 4-wheel drive capabilities. It is stupidly quick. Now, actually, when you look at it statistically compared to the RS200, it isn't that much better. I mean, the RS200 was up almost 100 horsepower on it, and weight-wise, the RS200 didn't weigh too much more. But you know, the Metro, maybe that's slightly lighter weight and slightly shorter wheelbase might help it up here. I guess we'll have to see at the end of the show. Next up, the complete opposite of the MG Metro, we now have a Grand Tour, again from England. This is the Bentley EXP10 Speed 6, the car that sounds like you're reading a football scoreboard. This thing has 633 horsepower, 619 foot-pound of torque, 4,497 pounds of weight. It is the most powerful vehicle here today, and it is an S1 class car, 858 in PI when equipped with the snow tyres. The EXP10, I actually do kind of like the EXP10. It's a pretty good looking car. I love the dashboard with the GPS behind the speedo and everything. That's fantastic. Yeah, I do like the EXP10, and to drive up here, very nice. You know, obviously it doesn't have the sort of snap capabilities of the Metro, but that does mean it's a lot more calming to drive. It's a nice car to drive. It is relatively quick though, don't get me wrong, while it's not Metro quick, it is still pretty darn quick. I mean, you saw there, it was almost getting 110 miles per hour on that straight, which is pretty darn quick. The one thing that did surprise me with the EXP10 is this thing is surprisingly agile. It weighs 4,497 pounds, and even for a 4-wheel drive vehicle, that's a lot. I mean, it clocks in at about 900 more pounds than a Lamborghini Aventador does, but it handles its weight pretty darn well. I've driven cars that weigh, you know, 1,000 pounds less than this and feel really heavy, cough cough, Audi R8. But you know, this does handle its weight pretty well. It is surprisingly agile to drive, and overall very nice, good car to drive up here. You know, after the insanity of the Metro, it was quite nice to just drive something that's a little bit more soothing, a little bit more relaxing. Yeah, I solidly recommend the EXP10 if you haven't driven this car already. I've driven it stock a few times and it's also pretty darn fantastic, so definitely give the EXP10 a drive if you haven't already. Again, another British car. This one is also suitably insane. A bit like the Metro really in that aspect. This is the TVR Sagaris, 406 horsepower, 349 foot-pound of torque, 2,377 pounds of weight. When you look at those statistics, they're not actually that far off the Metro. It's got 4 less horsepower, it weighs 100 pounds more, However, torque-wise, it has got a lot more. However, unfortunately for the Sagaris, at least going up here at least, it does not have a four-wheel drive system, which is what the Metro had. As a result of that, it was alright to drive up here. It's your typical rear-wheel drive affair. Ultimately, kind of reminded me of driving the Viper up here, except this is a little bit lighter, which to be fair isn't a particularly good thing, because that meant the Viper could handle its power a little bit better. But still, the TVR was a solid car to drive. Definitely not as scary as you would think driving a TVR in the snow would be. You know, maybe when they add the Speed 12, hopefully. Oh god, please add the Speed 12 Turn 10. I will love you forever. If they had that, that's got to go up the hill climb course, and rest assured that will probably try to kill me. But the Sagaris, it didn't really. The TVR Sagaris has never been my favourite of the TVRs. I like the car, don't get me wrong. I love the crazy design of it and everything, but it's just never been a TVR that struck me as particularly special, unlike, say, the Cerberus Speed 6, which is a car that I absolutely adore. In fact, any model of Cerber and Chimera, to be honest with you. But the Sagaris has never really particularly interested me. That being said, though, this is still a pretty decent car. To drive up here, it was alright. In the dry, you know, you can actually make pretty decent race cars out of these things. Because they're lightweight and quite high-powered, if you stick some good downforce on them and know what you're doing with the tuning, you can turn these things into pretty good race cars. As far as turning them into rally cars, I wouldn't hold your breath. I'm sure it's possible. I'm sure someone's been mad enough to do it before. But ultimately, yeah, probably not what I would use for the basis of my rally car. Still, an alright car, all in all. Next up, we go from crazy British cars to, well, sensible German family vehicles. This is the Opel Kadett, 114 horsepower, 119 foot-pound of torque, 2,023 pounds of weight. I should quickly explain, this car is slightly lighter, I believe, than it should be. It's because I removed the front and rear bumpers, because the rally lights and mud flaps did add weight, and ultimately the design of this vehicle doesn't particularly work unless you've removed those parts. It doesn't particularly ruin the car all that much. It's only about £7 lighter, but it's still worth mentioning in case you are curious. This is a C-Class car, 585 in PI once it is equipped with the snow tyres. The Kadett, it's slow. It's kind of similar to the A86, pretty much. It's a small, somewhat slidey vehicles. It's just not particularly remarkable in any sense. I would say the A86 was probably a little bit more slidey, but in return the A86 was also a little bit quicker when it comes to speed, because the A86 was more powerful, and I believe, actually this might weigh slightly less than the A86, but still the A86 did have the edge on power, and you know, when you're dealing with cars that only have about 100 horsepower, power ultimately is just the superior statistic over weight at that point. To an extent, of course, you know, you can't drive a 150 horsepower, 4,000 pounds vehicle as quick as a Kadett, but you know, when you've got a car which has 128 horsepower and weighs 200 pounds more, it's probably going to win, you know, having that 20 horsepower advantage. The Kadett certainly wasn't bad, though. The Kadett does make sense coming up here. I believe this does have some rally pedigree. In fact, I don't want to say this in case I'm wrong, but I'm fairly certain the Kadett GTE, which is what this car is, I think it might be some homologation / special edition built around rallying, potentially. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, Kadett just wasn't particularly remarkable in any aspect. A bit like the A86, really. Don't get me wrong, I think the A86 is more fun. If I had to, and I wouldn't say this often because I'm not a huge fan of the A86, but you know, if I had a choice of driving the Kadett up here or the A86, I'd probably go with the A86 because it's a little bit more fun to drive up here. So yeah, Kadett may be a little bit disappointing, but I wasn't really expecting too much out of this vehicle to begin with. And finally today, oh boy, we have the heaviest car that will probably ever take this course. This is the Teradyne Gurkha, 300 horsepower, 660 foot-pound of torque, 16,499 pounds of weight. Yeah, that's a lot. It has the most torque here, it is the heaviest car here, and it's also the lowest PI, 6561 LC 561 in PI when equipped with the snow tyres. The Gurkha. Oh, this wasn't a fun car to drive. So, I looked at the torque figures and went, okay, you know, this might actually be pretty interesting because with those torque figures, it should bode pretty well at climbing. Boy, I was wrong. This thing loses speed up the hills, and this is the first car I've ever seen around here that does that, when it actually is losing speed up most of these hills. Now, don't get me wrong, once or twice the cars will start losing speed, particularly over the last little hill just before the finish line. I have noticed that cars do lose speed up there, but I've never seen cars actually lose speed going up here. The Gurkha will. It was not good. It was so slow. Don't get me wrong, in the corners, it was good. But then again, any car's going to handle good at 30 miles per hour. I mean, it's got to be a pretty terrible car to handle badly at 30 miles per hour. So, yeah, the Gurkha just... you know, I've never particularly liked the Gurkha, to be honest with you. You know, I'm going to say that flat out. I've driven this thing for Top Gear laps a few times, and I hated it every single time I've driven it. Because it just wants to slide everywhere. But here's the thing, they fixed the handling in Horizon 3, which is great, but this vehicle just disappointed me with just how bad it was around here. I mean, you're seeing it here, look, it's dropping speed. There were some parts of this course where this thing dropped genuinely below 30 miles per hour. It was doing about 24, I believe, is the lowest it ever got up the hills, and that's just simply not good enough. You know, the problem is as well, the second gear is quite long, the first gear isn't so long, so I can't really shift it down to first to try and save it, which is what I was thinking to do. Interestingly enough, this car, despite having like a torque mountain according to the people I've spoken to, it doesn't seem that way when you drive it stock. In fact, this thing seems to almost have like a little VTEC system going on with it, which, as strange as that sounds, you can see it there. I actually do drop it into first to try and stop it from just falling back down the hill. Yeah, it does seem to have like a sort of an instant boost of power. You see it there a little bit. As soon as you get into the red line, it will just boost in power, and then it's all gone. It's a bit like Clarkson used to explain diesel motors, where it's like you get to the red line, and there's a modicum of power, and then you have to change up, otherwise you'll fry the engine. That's sort of what driving the Gurkha at speed feels like. But yeah, once it's in the corner, it's a good handling car. This is the hill where most cars lose speed on, and the Gurkha lost quite a lot of speed. Yeah, it isn't a good car. Really, really, really is not a good car. I hope I never have to drive a Gurkha again. I have a sneaking suspicion I probably will have to at some point, but after this experience and my previous experiences with this car, if I never saw a Gurkha again, I would be happy. Anyways, on to the times, and the Metro does indeed top our leaderboard with a 202.789, pushing the RS200 back into second place, beating it by about a second and a half, which is pretty darn good going. Speaking of good going, the EXP10 finds itself in fourth place with a 205.926, not too far for Gallardo Superleggera, which is a pretty respectable time from that EXP10, especially considering how much it weighs. The Sagaris finds itself in ninth with a 219.039, just misses out on the GTS Viper and the Cyclone. The Sagaris was decent, but I would say the Viper is the better of those two vehicles. Moving down the board, we actually find our two slowest cars of today. We find the Opel Kadett in 18th with a 240.761. As you can see, 9 seconds off the A86. Wasn't expecting particularly good things out of the Kadett anyways. And the Gurkha, 3 minutes 38.485. Yeah, that's a time which I don't think will be getting beaten in the slowness category for a while, unless something goes horribly wrong next episode. So tune in next time to see if that actually happens. Anyways, friends, I want to thank you all very much for watching. As always, if you have cars you would like to see go up the hill climb, please leave them down below in the comment section, and I will get round to them at some point. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching, friends. Mine has been the Real Emile, and until next time, farewell.